Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Corey Buchan, happy Monday, all over on YouTube, you guys. I go live on YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn on there, you guys. So I'm on all those major platforms out there, and we're really starting to kind of expand out the media presence of stuff. Micah Campo, what is up? Good morning to you. She's over on YouTube as well. But yeah, it's been a wild couple weeks here, and I'm going to kind of down into some of those things. We're going to break down some headlines here as well on kind of like what's going on in the market and everything else. I think one major point to bring up, though, for all my driver friends that watch this show, International Road Check is May 14th through the 16th coming up there. Be prepared for that, you guys. And, you know, it's just one of those things that capacity is always affected during International Road Check week, and that is March 14th through the 16th. So be prepared, right? Be prepared for that, because things are always dicey during that week, to say the least. Diesel fuel national average is at $4.01 a gallon nationwide out there, you guys. Keep that in mind as you're bidding on your freight and everything else. Fuel has not dropped. It's actually up exponentially over these last couple of years, primarily since 2021. Fuel has increased and it stayed elevated out there, you guys. I get all of that information from the EIA. EIA.gov publishes a great weekly report on that. And then you can go back and check out fuel trends and everything else. But I would definitely check that out if I were you guys. And especially if you guys want to have a better understanding on why your fuel rates change out there from, your customers that bid line haul plus fuel. That's a very clear indicator on where things are going to be. Sonny Sharma, Orange Shirt Gang in the house, coming in over on LinkedIn. Luke Wright, good morning to you. He's over on LinkedIn as well. So I just wanted to say something as well, you guys. As I had mentioned, I hired actually my first 2 employees here over these last couple of weeks. It's been wild, but I hired somebody to help with my marketing. As you guys might have noticed out there on social media, I have an upgraded episode announcements, audio clips, and everything else that we're going to be pumping out across social media. He's really helping me kind of build up my media presence to expand my reach out there. And one thing that we also created is we created a weekly newsletter as well. So if you go to thefreightcoach.com, you can register for that newsletter. I'm not going to go in and just sign up all of my contacts and spam all you guys to it because I fucking hate that personally. So if you guys want to check it out, it releases every single Friday. It's a weekly newsletter. What we're doing with it right now is we're just kind of breaking down some of my content, and we're building out a newsletter with that. But, we'll evolve just like with everything. My thing with content is I would rather start and perfect it as I go. And that's what we're doing, right? So we got a sick backdrop and everything for the format. Everything's looking cool. But we're going to continue to evolve it, you guys, and continue to bring another market insight out there for you guys to check out. So if you guys want to subscribe to this newsletter, go to thefreightcoach.com. It should prompt you to register for the newsletter out there, you guys. It drops every single Friday. And right now it's, we're doing an episode recap out there. And then again, it's just going to bring another form of market industry insights and trends and everything, just from my perspective and my place in the transportation industry. Also, Last week was big. It was big from a business development standpoint. I actually did my first keynote, which I wasn't even aware that I was the keynote speaker of the event, but I found that out when I had shown up there, which was pretty cool. The Minnesota Trucking Association, I went and spoke at their event last week in Minnesota, obviously. But, it was kind of wild to do that because that was my first keynote. And I was talking about creating your own freight market out there. And, a little personal side of things. So the venue that this event was held at was literally 2 miles from my grandma's house, where I kind of grew up going to. So it was kind of surreal to have it be so close. And my grandma was like, she's always been always was my biggest supporter in everything. So it was very fitting that my first keynote was 2 miles from her house. So just a little personal thing in there. But no, I was talking about going out and creating your own freight market in there. And I'm getting the audio from that to actually release out on a podcast so you guys can kind of hear the speech in its entirety out there. It was about 45 minutes long. But I was talking about that, and it was kind of an overview of what we talk about on this show a lot. And I took the time last week. So obviously I didn't go live on Wednesday and Thursday. And Wednesday I was in Indiana and I was visiting one of our customers. And Thursday I was doing that speech, but then I went out and visited prospects Thursday and Friday in person. And I want you guys all to think again, it's when it is doing your what can you do differently in a challenging freight market? And here's what this is just direct feedback from the people that I actually talk to out there. Nobody's going and visiting people in person. I want you guys to start there, right? Like, you might not have it in your budget to go fly to, a different city once a month or twice a month or once a week or wherever that looks like and develop business. You might not have the revenue to pay for lead generation software, but I do own your backyard, right? Like, I'm out there making sales calls literally every single day, you guys, sales calls, sales emails, everything else. And while I'm home here, I'm just going to continue to hammer the Phoenix market, right? Because if you can't afford that, which I understand, but you can afford a tank of gas, right? And just go around and just start close to your office, close to your house, wherever that is, and just try and visit people in person, right? Is that going to work everywhere? Absolutely not. It's not going to work everywhere because it's not going to be easy. It's not a clear line to success. But I have found that more people are way more receptive to when I just offer to, hey, can I just stop by and introduce myself in person? We're a local third-party freight broker. I specialize in open deck transportation. You guys do precast concrete. And I would just love an opportunity to stop by, put a face behind the voice in the email and everything else. And I found so much more success with that. The feedback that I got from my customer that I went and visited is not a lot of people are doing it, you guys, like, at all. And I think that it's a great way to stand out in a tough market because, freight volumes are what they are, right? Like, we're going to break down a couple of articles today about how, people are struggling in the market and everything else, but not everybody's struggling. I'm still developing business. I'm still getting meetings with people right now. Is it going to guarantee business? No, nothing's going to guarantee anything, but it will guarantee you're not going to fucking do anything the more you sit around and sit on your hands and wait for things to change. Because the reality is, you guys, this market is not going to change to a freight broker's favor at all. And if you haven't spent the last 18 plus months prospecting heavily like I have, when the market flips, you can't just miraculously pick up your fucking phone and all of a sudden find a bunch of shippers. Those days are done. Like, I'm convinced of that. Those days are done. You have to put in a ton of effort to get in front of somebody. And what can you do to separate yourself? I think that's what you need to focus on. And from my perspective, unless you're Anthony Jimenez here, it is probably cheaper to fly in the state of California than it is to fill up your tank of gas. But, take some time and go out there and meet people, shake some hands. I went and I accomplished more in 3 days last week of site visits than I did in the past 3 months of prospecting via email and everything else. Like, legitimately, I spent a couple of minutes with 6 different companies. I placed a face behind the name. A couple of them are going to give us an opportunity to at least start talking to them when they're in need for us. And again, that's all I can ask for, right? And that's what I'm going to do here while I'm local in Arizona over these next couple of weeks and in between travel and everything else. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put one day every couple of weeks, and I'm just going to start peppering the local market and just ask for an opportunity to swing by and introduce myself. And that's it. So that's what I mean by it's like, and again, creating your own freight market, you guys, the opportunities are always out there, right? It's always going to be challenging. There's always going to be competition. There's always going to be all of that. But what the fuck are you going to do? Right? Like, what are you going to do differently than everybody else out there? Because it's easy to throw your fucking hands up and complain, right? And be like, oh, it's always going to be tough. Welcome to the fucking real world, you guys. It's competitive. It's competitive out there and it's always going to be competitive. But what are you going to do differently? And for me, I have a newfound drive of just getting out there and fucking meeting people in person. Me and my good buddy Chris Brewer talk about this literally all the time. Chris Brewer owns a very successful company, you guys, and we agree on that. Well, we agree on a bunch of stuff, but especially on the site visits things. Because you know what? Get out there and do it. That's where I think all of the opportunities are going to lie in the coming months, especially is this getting out there and getting people. Because again, you guys, yeah, price is a factor, right? It is. Price is always going to be a factor out there, but what are you going to do about that? How are you going to separate yourself? And I think that's the biggest thing. Are you truly doing what is required, right? Like here's another prime example. Literally, when I landed in Minneapolis on Wednesday night, I got an email that one of my trucks didn't move all day long. So what did I do? I called my customer immediately. All right. I let them know immediately what was going on. I didn't fucking wait. It was after hours, but I let them know. And I was on the phone with them until like 9:00 Central Time, Wednesday night, formulating a plan to get everything delivered. The load delivered the following day. Everything happened. They got their product and it was what it was, but I didn't fucking wait. Right. Like, and I'm not going to wait. My customers are never going to have to wait to find out what's going on with their freight when they're booking loads with me and my company. And, again, are you going to look at that as well, shit, let's just wait till the following morning? Or are you just going to deal with shit? And that's like, where's your sense of urgency too? If you're passive in that and you just want to, this can wait till tomorrow. I can't keep doing you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just fucking rip the Band-Aid off and I'm going to inform my customers of what's going on in those moments. I'll deal with it. I would rather get ahead of it, right? I would rather go to bed that night and have that as check mark of, hey, it's been done. It's been notified. I did everything I could in that moment. Then fucking lose sleep all night waiting and wondering what the fuck's going to happen. They're going to be so pissed at me the following morning and all of that stuff. So keep that in mind, you guys, as we're kind of going on. And that was a little bit of a rant this morning, but I think it needs to be said, you guys. At the end of the day, I don't know everything. I'm just going to explain my experiences and what I'm actually going through in building my company up. Rest assured, you guys, my content is coming from somebody who's literally got everything on the fucking line to make it work. All right. I have everything on the fucking line here. I'm actually building a company. All right. So for whatever that's worth, take that into consideration as you're listening to my content and my perspective on doing things. Tracy St. Clair. Good to see you, Tracy, over on YouTube. Robert Cowton, good morning to you. And I will see you in a couple of weeks, man. Going to the SPI Logistics Rendezvous out in Nashville, Tennessee. See, that's why you guys got to become a freight agent with SPI. You guys, we get to have this sick event out there. And then plus all the resources that are available from it's such a no-brainer from a business development or from like a business standpoint, because they literally take on all the risk from insurance and accounting and everything. And you can just operate at the end of the day. And they have a phenomenal back office support team there helping you out. John Paradise, what is up, my man? Good to see you out here. All right, you guys, let's break down a couple of articles here. Excuse me. As always, Michelle McGinnis says, right on, customer service, a lost art. I would agree with that. John Bradvansky, good morning, and the good people in freight. All right, you guys, let's break down some articles here. As always, the links to the article are uploaded to the Freight Coach YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is up on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. First article is from freightwaves.com. Freight brokerages struggle through a long trough. Whatever. I went to public school. The freight winter that sent gotta sprinkle that in there. The freight winter that sent surge into bankruptcy and shut down convoy isn't over yet, even if the bottom is likely in. Tender rejection rates are hovering around 4%, indicating that capacity is still loose and that asset-based carriers aren't in a position to reject contracted freight. JB Hunt's first quarter results revealed the pain felt by the largest transportation providers and their brokerages. Integrated capacity solution, Hunt's brokerage, said that gross revenues were down 26% year over year to $285 million on 22% fewer loads and 5% lower revenue per load. The operation as a whole is now smaller than it was 5 years ago in the first quarter of 2019, when it posted gross revenues of $301 million. Hunt has invested in improving online marketplaces that powers most of ICS's transaction. JB Hunt 360 by removing sketchy carriers and covering more loads manually to avoid fraud and bad actors. But gross margins actually widened to 14.3% compared to 13.4% in the first quarter of 2023. ICS ended up burning $17.5 million, but $11 million of that was due to integration costs related to Hunt's acquisition of BNSF, a freight brokerage that accounts for approximately $70 million of their revenue. Wall Street wasn't happy. Hunt's share price is down 8%. Speaking of BNSF, we once again received little incremental insight into integration processes besides there being challenges in the quarter, wrote Stifel equity analyst Bruce Chan on an April 17th client note. The acquisition is still somewhat of a black box in our view, and we would like to see more disclosure given out there. Chan noted that Hunt's dedicated business, which enjoys long-term contracts and stickier pricing than typical contracted freight, has been under pressure for several quarters, and customer retention fell to 91% in that quarter, a sign that margins on new business will be under pressure. Management is confident it can backfill downsizing with new accounts and hold dedicated steady in 2024. FreightWaves spoke to logistics industry expert Kevin Hill of Brush Pass Research about the state of the market in the freight brokerage industry, and that Brush Pass, gathers intelligence on key decision makers out there. Brokers are saying it's a brutal market, Hill said. Signing up new shippers is a challenge. Getting more loads is a challenge, and pricing something profitably is a challenge. Hill said that while there are 27,000 active brokers with motor carrier numbers operating in the United States, 88% of the industry's gross revenue is controlled by the top 1,000 brokers. And the largest of those, the top 50 or so that compete with them, haven't suffered the brunt of the freight recession. Small to medium-sized brokerages managed to grow gross revenues in 2023 out there. And the top 20 brokerages saw a 13% decline in gross revenues over year in 2023, said Kevin Hill. I look at a lot of this information as this opportunity. That's the first thing that comes to my mind every time I read this, right? Because it's like, if you look at these last couple of years, a lot of the company's growth out there that you saw was completely attributed to the chaos in the market, clearly, right? Because I just looked at the top 100 freight brokerage by revenue this morning. I got that from ttnews.com if you want to check that out. And they were all back down to like 2019 levels, right? So all of that growth that they had saw has been completely wiped out and dropped some on top of that. And I see a lot of that is an opportunity to me, right? Because that means that nobody changed from my perspective. All right. Nobody changed anything to capture more revenue. All right. And I think that, yes, although small and mid-sized brokerages have been hit the hardest, I think that there's still a major opportunity out there when you're competing against some of the larger companies, because that is the biggest thing that you can hear out there from a like from a sales perspective is the lack of attention that some of these smaller accounts see from the larger providers that are out there. So I see an opportunity when I read a lot of these statistics, right? It goes on to say, according to Armstrong and Associates, a mergers and acquisitions advisory firm, freight brokerages in the U.S. doubled in size from 2019 to 2022, from 86 billion in revenue to 159 billion in revenue. You had a doubling in the pandemic of freight controlled by 3PLs, said Kevin Hill. What you see is the correction that we finally saw in 2023 numbers. And then it goes on to say that it's unclear when the truckload market will heat back up because it's difficult to judge how quickly excess capacity is exiting. And then you can always read the comments in some of these articles because they're pretty funny. Freight brokerage struggles through a long trough, whatever, and that's from freightwaves.com out there. That article was released on Fridays. And, again, I look at a lot of this stuff as an opportunity. I truly do, right? Because I just will never subscribe to the fact that it's so tough out there that you can't do your job. Because again, speaking from personal experience, it's easy to throw in the towel when you see a lot of these things, right? When you're like, oh, if the big guys are struggling, everybody's going to be struggling and everything else. People are fucking growing. You just haven't heard about them yet, right? People are doubling in size right now. You just haven't heard about them yet, right? Because a lot of this information that's out there is way more appealing than actually providing, hey, this is what you can do to develop business, right? And again, I know that any news source that's out there will always say it's not our job to do that. It's our job to report on the facts of the industry. Well, the fact of the matter is this, you guys can still fucking make sales calls. All right. You can still set up appointments. You can still do all of that. All right. Don't let any of this information deter you from doing your job. All right. Because yes, it's challenging out there. But again, like I said, I see a massive opportunity in the sense that all of the top 10 freight brokerages over these last couple of years, revenue decreased. All right. And I'm not celebrating anybody's loss by stating that. I'm celebrating the fact that clearly nothing was done at the top brokerages levels that customers continued to see the value in working with them. And yeah, price, anybody could argue the price thing. It's about price. It's about price. And I get that. But that to me sells that there's more of an opportunity out there than people are ever going to sell in the media. All right. Because if nobody grew, like, there's some companies that grew. I know that they were, but I don't want to mention names, but I just talked to one of them out there, and they're a Tennessee-based company, and I'm a massive fan of what they do. And there's others as well that have grown over this time. But to me, it's pretty simple. Anytime you see these reports out there and nobody in the top 10 has grown over that time, to me, there's an opportunity for the small to mid-sized providers to continue to grow. Because if the largest ones aren't growing in a down market, that means that they're probably not changing their ways. And I know that complacency is a very real killer to a lot of people out there in the market, right? Because when it's good, you think it's always going to be good. And the reality is it's not always good out there. And you have to change your ways sometimes. But Eric Ransom, happy Monday to you, sir. Second article we're going to break down is ttnews.com. Logistics market faces challenges across segments. Let me see here. And then Uma Taylor, says, good morning, Chris. If the big guys are struggling, it does not mean the smaller guys are not doing well. There's a lot to go around. You just need to work hard, work smart, and get out there and seize the opportunity. I couldn't agree more with what you said there, Uma. Straight up, 100%. You just need to fucking work hard. Freight brokerage firms, it says, for the most part, large freight brokerage companies faced declining revenues and compressed margins last year as an oversupply of capacity continued to hold down freight rates. Despite the difficult business environment, familiar names continue to dominate the list. C.H. Robinson easily retained its top ranking from its brokerage operations, although it did decrease to 12.5 million, down from 15.8 billion, with a B. TQL remained number 2 with 6.6 billion, while WEX Group The parent company, Worldwide Express, Global Trans, and Unishippers moved up to number 3 with over $4 billion in revenue. UPS business unit Coyote slipped to number 4 on the list with declined revenues to $3.9 billion. Earlier this year, UPS said it was considering selling the business, which it acquired for $1.8 billion in 2015. UPS, if you're listening to this for some reason, I'm going to try and work to get the financing. I'll just, we'll just give you a straight cash offer somehow, or you could just transfer me the business. We can work out an equity deal or something like that. And then you guys can still retain some of it. And then I'll just double or triple that. Right? That's what we'll do. So UPS, take my call. I haven't actually called them, but I believe in speaking things into existence. So just watch, you guys. I'll get an email from UPS here in the coming weeks. If you're serious, let's talk. In September, JB Hunt, which freight brokerage business ranked out there, purchased BNSF, which was number 35 on the list. And then dry storage warehousing firms that were out there. We're talking about rising labor costs and inventory imbalances out there. And then refrigerated warehousing firms, the industry consolidation trend, continued as Lineage and Americold remain unchallenged in the cold storage sector. This article, it just kind of broke down segments of the industry there and who the top performers are and everything else. And, dedicated carrier, contract carriers, JB Hunt Dedicated remains at the front of the pack. Then it has a dedicated fleet of 13,000 power units out there. And then it goes on to say that when it talked about Ryder acquiring Cardinal Logistics out there, and then Penske, Schneider, Knight-Swift round out the top 5, followed by Warner and everything else. But yes, the industry, you could argue, is down from historic levels. But again, I always like to peel back the layers and remove anomalies from my pricing decisions and my business decisions and everything else. And again, there are a lot of people out there who are very intelligent, who are putting content out about this industry every single day. This article from TT News talked about the the largest players in a couple of different business units that were out there. But, again, for where the majority of us are in this business, in this market and everything else, and again, that's kind of tied into my speech at the Minnesota Trucking Association is we got to create our own freight market, right? Because my stock price yet isn't affected by any of this stuff, right? None of this stuff can affect your efforts. And I think that there's such an opportunity, as I brought up. If the larger players aren't growing right now, there's an opportunity. That means that they're not doing something, right? Just like everybody is. Everybody should be looking internally at their book of business, at their sales outreach, what they can do differently and apply that. But again, I look at it as if some of these large providers out there, and again, these guys have major P&Ls, they got acquisition, they got a bunch of shit going on, right? So there's some easily explainable things to this, but again, there's opportunities out there. That's what I want my message to be as we're wrapping up today's show. There is opportunities out there if you want them. All right. You have to fight. You have to fight long and fight hard, and you have to be willing to do what others are not willing to do. While most people look to automate everything, automate the sales experience, the customer experience, and everything else, I'm going back to the good old days of just showing up and introducing myself and building a human-to-human interaction, because everybody will always tell you it's about relationships. Nobody wants a fucking automated thank you card. All right? Nobody fucking wants that. All right? So do what others aren't willing to do. We got guests coming on this week. And I got a new podcast episode getting released. And yeah, we're just going to continue to do what we do. Check out the newsletter, you guys. Subscribe to the newsletter. I'm not going to spam you guys and just add my contacts information in there. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, go to thefreightcoach.com. It's going to be released every single Friday. Drop in your information once a week only. I'm not going to try and sell you anything through that. It's just going to be another way to deliver more information out there from a media perspective by people who are actually doing the work. As always, you guys, if you guys got value in what you heard today, subscribe to the show, share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.